Good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com. Here it is Wednesday, the 20th of July, 2022. And you've tuned into the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion. Good to have you along this afternoon. A little bit longer of a version of what I talk about in the morning. And so today we'll take a look at, but what is this headline all about? Watch the tropical Atlantic next week. I'll get into that. It's a kind of an important benchmark coming up with some parameters that could be quite favorable. And we'll have to see if we get development out of that. And if we don't, it could signify that something is off this hurricane season that people were not anticipating. Or it could mean nothing at all because climatology. Anyway, we'll get to all that. And I'm doing some traveling. I'm going to be heading to the desert Southwest starting tomorrow for about a week for the North American monsoon phenomenon. And I'll discuss that as well, what I plan to do and accomplish out there. All right? All right, so let's start off with this tweet here from Andy Hazelton, the afternoon EPS, that is the Ensemble Prediction System, from the Euro, showing one or two more Eastern Pacific systems over the next few days, but nothing in the Atlantic, not a hint of it. It's just, barren out there over the next 10 days, and it looks like these dry, dusty conditions that we have seen dominate the pattern for most of the month of July will continue. The EPS there showing nothing in the Atlantic Basin through the 28th of July. Now, let me say that this is expected, even in a very busy season, a season that is forecast to be very busy, I should say. Climatologically speaking, not until about mid-August do we tend to start expecting things to get active in the Atlantic Basin. So I don't see much out of the norm with this. I know there's a lot of hemming and hawing going on out there about where are all these hurricanes that people said were coming. I mean, it's only July 20th, for goodness sakes. We still have another month until the climatological ramping up of the hurricane season traditionally begins. And if you don't think that that you cannot cram a big season, an ace of over 200, into 6 to 8 weeks, just go back and look at 2004 as an example. There are other examples as well. So, there's a lot of dry, dusty air out there, but a lot of other parameters are in place that should give us a very busy peak time of August through October. No reason to change the plan now. Planning for it. We're getting ready for it here on our end. And, as they say, it only takes one. There could just be one hurricane, and it could be historic. You just never know. You look at 1992 with Andrew as an example of that, and there's plenty others throughout history. All right, so moving on, nothing in the Atlantic. We already know that. In the Eastern Pacific, here we have Estelle. It is weakening, getting over some cooler water now, but the 5-day outlook does indicate another system with potential to develop only 30% out to 5 days, so it's not a robust signal, and so things might be slowly starting to change. I think they are. It's just a gradual process. And let me just say something about that. I mean, think about it. With social media and websites like I use, such as Storm 2K, the message board, and all of the people that are on there, and all of my social media followers, Andy, Eric Webb, and just plenty of others, we look at this stuff collectively probably every 5 minutes. Seriously. With all the people that watch this stuff over at Storm 2K, again, one of my favorite message board sites, been around a long time, Twitter, some Facebook. My Facebook's mostly personal stuff. But Twitter, I use that a lot, and the people that I follow, 90% of them are weather and mainly hurricane related. All of those people added up, collectively, aggregated, they are looking at this, I would bet, every 5 minutes. Does that make sense? Not one singular person, but the group. The average, we're looking at something, a satellite picture. What did somebody say? What's the Euro show? What's the dust look like? What's the future weeklies? What's the CFS? Where's the La Nina going? There's probably so many eyes looking at it that it's basically every 5 minutes. That would be my guess. So the expression, a watched pot never boils, it just seems like it's taking a long time for the Atlantic to perk up. And again, realize nobody's wishing for hurricanes to come along and wreck people's lives. The science was telling us that we were going to have a very busy season. We expect that the science will be correct. And if it's not, we got to go back and start looking at some things. What did we miss collectively? The people that make these forecasts. I talk about these forecasts a lot. People listen, and we're all watching together. But I'm telling you, again, it's July 20th. climatology, and we're watching this so closely under a microscope that I just think it seems like it's taking a long time. And I seem to remember that we talk about this almost every year. So there's that. All right, off the stage, soapbox, whatever, to reality. There's the track map, our interactive tracking map at the HurricaneTrack Insider site. And there is Estelle and its track over the last few days, and it's weakened now to a tropical storm, and it'll eventually die out here over the cooler waters of the eastern Pacific. So there you go. There's that. We're going to come back to this map in just a little while. In fact, I'm going to slide it over here because I'm going to use it later when I talk about my trip out to the monsoon. So we'll go ahead and turn off the all the hurricane stuff there, the tracking, and zoom in a little bit and get that ready. All right. So satellite animation this afternoon. There's Estelle. You know, that's what the lack of thermodynamics will do for you. Cooler water in this situation. So cooler water means less upper oceanic heat content, obviously less latent heat down at the surface and whatever. You know, there's just not much energy there. Here's all this other activity trying to blossom in the eastern Pacific, and it is remarkable that simply jumping across the landmass down here, it's gone. There's virtually no convection out here. It's just wild. But that's an interesting thing. We're not having these weak storms, shorties as people have started to call them lately, mixing the ocean, taking energy out, whatever, and the oceans are just getting warmer and warmer and warmer. And so when something does come along, we're going to have these pristine conditions where there's no upwelling from some 50-mile-per-hour storm that milled around out there for several days. It can be kind of this double-edged sword, but warm water temperatures, we obviously know that by now, are not the only factor. But I'm just saying, you know, you look at all this calmness, the lack of clouds, and you think, oh, good, there's no hurricanes to worry about. But at the same time, that's a lot of energy that is still getting input into the ocean, the Gulf, the Caribbean, the Atlantic Basin as a whole, to be stored and potentially used later. When I do my update on Monday, we'll take a look at upper ocean heat content and some other factors as well. That'll be from somewhere out in, I guess, Nevada. I'll get to that. Anyway, sliding over to the east. Now, that is a vigorous tropical wave, no doubt about it. In fact, if you've watched my videos enough, you can see I've talked about this before. It has that S shape. And normally, you'd be like, all right, there we go. It's going to wind up. But the air mass out here is so dry right now. The relative humidity in the mid-levels of the atmosphere is just not there. You've got to have that moisture in the mid-levels, or it's basically capped. You know what I mean? The air is also sinking, so it's drier that way. When you squish the air, it warms by compression, and you don't get cloud cover, and it's just not favorable. And the pattern is not there. You've got all these ingredients, but a major ingredient is the upper air support and just the overall pattern to get that air to lift, and that's not there right now. However, there is a tropical wave right there moving through the islands, so maybe Brent you'll eventually see, and Carlos over here, and Timothy, and others that we have down there. Some of our supporters live in the Virgin Islands and vicinity. Maybe a few random rain showers as that moves through, but that's about it. Almost looks like a blue strawberry that I drew there, but whatever. So there's that tropical wave. It is vigorous. There's a lot of moisture coming off, but it's just there's this piece missing with the thermodynamics of the atmosphere. It's just not there yet. And so, again, I cite that date right there. It's July 20th. Climatology, folks, climatology. All right, so speaking of the Euro, so Andy showed the ensemble prediction, and this is like, you know, a conglomerate of all that. This is called the Spaghettios Plot. It's hard to explain. So this is like an aggregate or the ensemble output. This is the operational. Nope, not that one. This one. This is the operational for the Euro, and it's the new one that Dr. Levi Cowan has made available. So it's like every 3 hours. See that? It's very nice. So let's just scooch this out over the next 10 days or so. And why not? Almost 10 days. It goes out to about 180 hours. And you see nothing out in this area to speak of at all. A few of these tropical waves roll through, and you can see them. They kind of roll through. There is energy out there. There's definitely some vorticity. But there is some rumblings, whatever there is some indication, that's what I'm trying to say, by some of the guidance that maybe one of these tropical waves tries to take off, even if you don't see it in the operational output. And what I mean by that is the background state is going to change a little bit. We're going to have this convectively coupled Kelvin wave move through, which is like a short window of opportunity for something to try to develop. It leaves less shear, more moisture, and a favorable convergence environment in its wake as it goes through. It's kind of like the ice cream truck coming and handing out ice cream to all the kids, and as it goes by, the kids are all sugared up and ready to go. That's a great analogy. I just made that up, but that's pretty much the CCKW is the ice cream truck of the globe sometimes, and it works for any basin really. And in the Atlantic basin, it just might trigger something. So that's why the title card that I showed you, Watch the Tropical Atlantic Next Week, is important, because if something does develop with the passage of this convectively coupled Kelvin wave and just a couple of other factors that are coming into play, then it would signify, because we're still in late July, that we're actually a little ahead of schedule. If nothing develops, it's still not enough to say, I don't think the season's going to do much, because it's still late July. It's a weird conundrum, and I'll be watching it very closely, even while I'm out in the desert Southwest. So it's not on the operationals, but it's in the overall pattern change. And I can show you that too. Let's just jump over here to the upper dynamics real quick. The beauty of these longer updates, I can kind of do as I want to here. What am I trying? I'm looking for the 200 millibar wind. There it is. So let's just move this out to about day 5, 6, 7, 8, 168 hours. There we go. So we see what happens here. Easterly winds all throughout this area off of Africa, and that's the upper levels of the atmosphere, 200 millibars up. Now, you do have this upper level area of low pressure here, so that's not favorable. But this is very favorable, this upper level high pressure, clockwise flow. Sorry, I drew it the wrong way. This is favorable. So the upper levels are going to get a little bit more favorable, but the lower levels, the relative humidity, still a decent amount of dry air out there, and it's getting sent in from the northeast towards the southwest here, and that is problematic for these systems to develop. The surface high is a little too far to the south. We're just not quite there yet, but more and more ingredients, that's the point, are starting to slide into place. And eventually, like one of those games where you match everything up and then they collapse and disappear. Tetris was an example back when I was a younger person. That's one that I remember. You slide these puzzle pieces into place, you got the clear picture, and things start to get going. So there's an interesting window coming up here that we will certainly be watching. All right, now on to the monsoon and just heat and whatever. Wow. And I shouldn't laugh at all, but I mean, what can you do? It's just crazy how hot it has been. Lots of stories coming out of Texas about the drought there. Been so long since measurable rain. You've seen what's going on in Europe. Another, set of hemming and hawing on social media about, is it man-made? Is it natural? Is it all BS? I don't care in the short term like today. I just know that it's hot, and we have to be ready for it. Arguing about it, that's not helpful. Doing something about it, being prepared, just like for hurricanes, that is sensible. And look, all across these big population areas, even in my neck of the woods, heat advisories up, and it is hot out there. Huge area of upper level high pressure, basically sitting over a good chunk of the lower 48 here. This is not perfect, but that's the general idea. This big old heat dome, and that air is really thick in the atmosphere, and it's just pushing down, and it compresses and warms like I talked about before over the tropics, and we're getting that over the nation's midsection and elsewhere as that big high expands like a big old balloon, and it's darn hot right underneath it. But along the northern edges of it, and that's a severe thunderstorm watch, and the southwest edge of it over here, why is it not drawing? It's being difficult. On this side of it, you get southeasterly flow, and you get the monsoon that comes into the desert southwest. On the northern side, you can get some severe weather in these little derechos and long-lived lines of thunderstorms. We call that the ring of fire overall. So the southwest side and the northeast side, and then sometimes these filter down. You might get a little backdoor cold front and some severe weather in the mid-Atlantic. We've seen destructive thunderstorms in D.C. recently. Incredible shelf cloud pictures over New York City, Manhattan, and vicinity. That's from these thunderstorms that come around the top side, the north side of this huge dome of high pressure. But what about the southwest? I am specifically interested in Arizona, Utah, and Nevada. So I'm heading out there tomorrow. This is from the National Weather Service Flagstaff. Their nice infographic. Isolated to scattered and then numerous by the weekend, Sunday, and that's going to be perfect for the timing of where I'm going to be going. I'll talk about that more in a moment. Elsewhere, though, just to kind of show you the rest of the region down towards Phoenix and Tucson. Whoops, I clicked too far north there. Let's go down to Phoenix. Thank you. So there's that high, and in this situation, it's a better representation of it. It's situated generally over Utah right now, but it's going to slide more to the east with time, and that's going to allow that moisture plume to focus in Arizona. That's coming, and that's why I'm headed out there. I think it's going to be an active pattern. It's going to be darn hot tomorrow, though, and Friday. But as we slide down here and look at the Tucson forecast as an example, look at this. I get in tomorrow. My colleague Matt's going to join me tomorrow evening, and then Friday we go. We're going to head down to southeast Arizona. 40%, 60%, thunderstorms likely, and that runs through Saturday and Sunday down there. Very active time of it, and we're going to be there, and we're going to set up cameras when needed. We're going to be kind of mobile and quick. We see a flash flood, maybe there's a haboob or a dust storm, a big lightning show, maybe even some hail, very little tornado threat out there. The shear profiles aren't there to develop real supercells, but it's the flash flooding, the lightning, especially at night. We're going to take a whole bunch of GoPros with us, our DSLR, and try to get some nighttime stuff. I'm fascinated by it. I think it's interesting, and it's important. That monsoon is so important to deliver moisture. And there's a story out there as well. Lake Mead, Lake Powell, both of those down. We've seen those stories, and they're not made up. It's not clickbait. Bodies and barrels in Lake Mead. It sounds like something out of a movie, but it's true. Relics from a long time ago starting to show up at the bottom of Lake Mead as that water level drops, and there's the threat that these lakes could reach dead pool level, and that becomes a catastrophe. And I'm going to talk about that and try to put a report together and post it on our Patreon and on social media as well. All right, so that's the plan generally. Let me just kind of show you the pattern real quick too in the modeling here. This is the GFS. This is where we're talking about. There's New Mexico. Might get into New Mexico a little bit. I'm hoping to meet up with Eric Webb, who lives in Albuquerque. I'm going to visit my friend Paul that lives over here near Vegas. And then Jeremy, who lives down here in Sierra Vista. Different friends and colleagues of mine. I'm going to try to visit them as time allows. And, maybe even do some interviews with them about what's happening with the drought out there. But anyway, the pattern, look at that. The green, mostly in Arizona as we get into the weekend. That's the 300 to 700 millibar relative humidity, and that is a channel. That is perfect. Right there, funneling right up into the area, even southwest Utah. The high is going to be sitting over here, and the moisture is coming around the backside of that high like I was talking about. You see it there. There's even more of it as we get into early next week, maybe even into New Mexico to some extent. So I'm excited about it. It's a very interesting phenomenon. You speed up geologic time when you get a lot of rain out there. It's an important part of the climate and just everything. It's much bigger than just beautiful pictures of lightning at night from the mountains overlooking Tucson. That's awesome, but there's a lot more to it than that. So the plan is to get this to work. I'll hit Phoenix tomorrow, fly out there, and then we're going to spend, Matt and I, Friday and Saturday. This will basically be our area right through here. Saturday, maybe even up through this area, in and around the Phoenix region. Sunday, we're going to work our way up through Wickenburg and 93, etc., and end up eventually in Las Vegas, where we're going to meet up with Paul. Paul lives over in Pahrump over here somewhere. And then Monday, we're going to make our way up to southwest Utah and then down through the Vermilion Cliffs. And I'm just trying to wing it here. And basically stay up all night, Monday night, there should be a pretty widespread thunderstorm outbreak, if you want to call it that, across the Colorado Plateau. And then we're going to end up at the Grand Canyon and hopefully get some of those amazing lightning shots at the Grand Canyon. Couldn't have planned this better if I tried. I booked this like a month ago and was thinking, all right, the end of July, I'm going to put all my chips there, and I think it's going to pan out. And so we'll stay up all night Monday, and then Tuesday, going to go over to Gallup over here and hopefully meet up with Eric, who comes over from Albuquerque, if he's available. We'll see. And then eventually make our way back down to Phoenix through Wednesday, and we all fly home Thursday. So there's the itinerary. That's a lot of ground to cover, and a lot of weather will be happening. We will be streaming live when possible from the vehicle. We have a rental. I'll pick up a truck tomorrow, take the vehicle cam, a couple of our remote cams, and one of our connected Kestrels. Let me come back on real quick. The little Kestrel things we can display on the HurricaneTrack Insider site on this map. Well, let me just show you, instead of talking about it real quick, because we've got one over in Nevada, right here. There it is. So we've got a permanent site in Nevada at Paul's house. Actually, this is out in Pahrump, Nevada, where it's 113.92 degrees. My internet is slow, trying to get the shot to come up there from Nest. There it is. 113, and that's in the shade. The Kestrel's sitting in the shade about 3 meters above the ground or something like that, 2 meters, whatever it is. And the air pressure is the station pressure, 924 millibars. Why? I'll wait for you. Because it's the high desert. They're elevated. Anyway, that's why the air pressure is low. It's not adjusted to sea level pressure. That's literally the station pressure. Humidity is 12%, the dew point 49. The dew point is up there, kind of, and that's relative, and showing that moisture that's starting to feed in. And you can see the temperature chart and other stuff right here. This is all on our HurricaneTrack Insider site, accessible to our patrons, just so you know. But while we're out there, once in a while, Matt and I will set up one of these Kestrels and just give you a spot measurement. Probably, you know what, I should just leave one out somewhere and we go pick it up. I was going to figure out how I would get it to the internet. We'll figure it out. But it's going to be darn hot tomorrow and Friday. But while we're out there, I think it'll be really neat to show you the humidity and the dew point for sure. So that's the plan. And all the while, I will be watching the tropics, of course, and we'll do updates as needed. Just one more thing before I try to sign off here. I'll have a What's Up in the Tropics tomorrow morning, very, very early. I'll probably schedule it so the notifications doesn't wake everybody up. My plane is leaving Wilmington pretty early. And then I'll do it again Friday, Saturday, whatever. And if we need to do an outlook and discussion like this where it's much longer, I will. Otherwise, that'll be on Monday as regularly scheduled. I usually do those on Monday. But every morning, wherever I am, I do plan on producing those little short What's Up in the Tropics segments. And I hope you'll subscribe, like, and share. See, tried to segue into that. All right, so we will be watching the tropical Atlantic next week, and I'll be doing so from the desert Southwest. Going to be an interesting time of it for sure. All right, so that is it from me for now and the rest of the week, at least for these long discussions. We'll do this again Monday, earlier if needed. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. I am Mark Sudduth. I'll talk to you again briefly tomorrow morning. And then I'm off to Phoenix, Arizona, and I'll talk to you again next from out there.